Hi, I'm Peter Kalmstrom of kalmstrom.com Business Solutions. In this demonstration, I will talk about SharePoint automation with Power Automate. And I'm going to talk about notifications when something changes, and I'm going to show you one way of doing that. And I'm also going to show you how to keep track of changes. So here I have an example of a product list of the products in development at Contoso Electronics for this example. And I have one product in it. And as you see, this has the status business analysis. That's the stage it's in now. We as a company have decided that these are the steps that we're going to go through with each new product. And this is the description of what is to be done at that point of the process. So that's how we're working. And we also have stakeholders in every project that should be notified. And if that's, of course, something that's easy to do, but it needs to be done in an automated fashion. I also want to check on this Pivot Explorer and see who approved this at every stage, who made it go forward. And of course, you can automate and do lots of work on approval also. But in this case, I just want to keep track of who actually did the approval and at what time, so that whole process, how did this product move through the different business phases before it actually got launched. So that's what we're going to do here. So we have two lists and they are merged with this status column here. Let's just go in and look at the column settings for that one. As you see, this is a lookup, looking up on the product statuses, and it's also picking along the description field so that I can use that in my flow later. So let's build an automated flow that reacts to when an item is created or modified. And I'm going to call it product notifications. And then just create that. And the parameters that I want to set here is, of course, the site where I have my list and the actual list. That's what we're going to react to. Then I'm going to get the changes because I want to check, has the status actually been modified since last time? To do that, I'm getting the changes from the same list, product development, and the product list, and the ID of the item that was just modified, step above here. And then for the trigger, I'm also going to use dynamic content. I'm going to use the trigger start token. That gives me the changes for just this latest version. That's exactly what I want. So then I'm going to check, I'm going to do a condition. I'm going to check if the status value has been changed. So status has column changed, status. If that is equal to true, and then add that. Then we're going to send an email. So I'm going to add that action. I'm going to pick the email address, make that a dynamic content. There. I'm just going to select the email of the stakeholder, right? Now notice that that is plural there, but for now the column can only contain one user. I'm going to modify the column and the flow to handle that situation later, where we have multiple stakeholders. Subject is, again, we're going to use dynamic content here, put the title of the item that has been changed, the product, and then we're going to get the status. And the status value, of course, is what we want. And in the description, here we can use the description of the status that we're just using. So there, and description. Great. So let's save and test this now. And of course, we test it by simply adding, modifying an item in the SharePoint list. So it's on, all good. So let's go back to the product list there and make a modification there. You can open that and change it to number 4. And then we just close that, and now it's number 4. We go back to our flow and we refresh and we wait up to 5 minutes before that run is actually made, and then we can see if everything went through properly. There we are. Now it's run, and it took 575 milliseconds to run. So that probably means that it did send the email. Yes, there we went. There we go. So let's check in my email, and there we see updated to 4. Yep, all is there. Good. So let's make the changes needed. First of all, we're going to change the stakeholders column so that allow multiple selections. Then we can go in and modify that here and put in another stakeholder. I'll put my mother in there. So now she's a stakeholder also. So let's go back and modify this script now so that it can handle multiple recipients. So now we're going to loop through the recipients. We're going to add a loop inside the condition. If we are to send an email, apply to each. That's what we're looking for, of course. And apply to each, and the item we're going to apply to each is the stakeholders. So let's just go in here and put the stakeholders there, and now it's identified that as a group, or a collection rather. So for each stakeholder we're going to send an email, and now as you see that's picking up the stakeholders email, but that's going to be a collection now, so that we need to change that, and we're going to put in the dynamic value of the current item. There we go. Now you see we have the current item, but we can't just put the whole item there. We need to put the actual email address of that. So let's look at the code view and see what that's doing. So there, 2 items apply to each, which is of course the item here. And then we're going to change that, and we go into the function guide here, paste that in, and then we're just going to put email there. And then that's going to pick that from that apply to each object. So let's add that, and let's check that now. Save, and then we go back to the products list, edit this Pivot Explorer product, change it to be number 5 instead. Go back to our flow. We have 2 runs here. In a few seconds we should get a 3rd one, and here we see that it ran and picked up that there was indeed a change, and looped through the 2 items and sent an email to my address and to Kate. So that worked, and let's check my mailbox. Here's the sent items. Go to the inbox, and there we get that I have the updated 205 there. So that's correct. All right, let's improve this flow and this system a bit further. So now I want to also keep track of who made these decisions. So I'm going to add a column. I'm going to add multiple lines of text. That's the one I want to add. Change log, and I'm going to be multiple lines of text, and I'm going to go here into this strangely described option here. Append changes to existing text. That basically makes a list of entries instead of just one big change log. So that you might like. Otherwise we can of course append to an existing text also, but this I think is more powerful and an often overlooked feature of SharePoint. So let's do that. And there you can see the entries of that, of what has happened before in the change log. So now we're going to modify the flow here, and every time there's a change, we're going to send the emails, then we're going to update the item, update item, and it's the same site that we're working on of course, and the same list, and we're updating the same item again, the ID, the one that was just updated. And then let's just show all there, and then we're going to find the change log there, and then we can just add the name of the person that made the change, modified by. Notice that this of course will only happen if you actually change the status. So any other changes will not be labeled in the change log. We still have them in the version history of course, but so modify by displayed name. and then we're going to put the status, and then let's add the status value, and then just a space, and then the date when this was modified. Let's get that modified. All right, let's see how that looks. Yeah, we don't have a circular loop because we have this change there, so this is nothing to worry about actually, so that's okay. Let's go back to the product list and make a change there. So now I'm going to move it to number 6, edit in grid view, click there, 6, and now we're modifying that, and exit the grid view, and now it's definitely saved. So let's go back into the flow, see the next run here, and here's the 4th run, and let's see that it ran through. We can check that. But the interesting thing now is, of course, to see the actual value, how it looks here. Now if I refresh this to make sure I see the latest one, there I can see the update there, that change log. Yes, actually you see that the time there, that didn't turn out very well, so we can remove that. But we put too much information in there already because it became double. But you see the principle here, that you can have a change log. Let's make one more just to test it out. Let's edit this to make it better. Update item, and let's take away all of that. Save. Yes, we know. We have that handled. Back. Let's make another test. Edit that. We're still in the same item here, so let's edit this and move to number 7 now. Save that. Here we go, now it's run again. Let's go back to our product here and see the change log, and there it is. Not much nicer. Yep, status 20. Good, neat change log. So now we have covered notifications, we have covered multiple stakeholders, and we have covered a change log. Thank you for watching this demonstration.